Hello and welcome to the Two Man Power Trip Wrestling. Your host, JP John Paz. With me today, a very, very special guest. Probably the greatest resume ever in the history of MMA. He's a Pride middleweight and welterweight champion, first ever double champion in MMA. He's a Pride Grand Prix winner. He's a UFC 17 middleweight tournament winner, Strikeforce light heavyweight champion. Man, it's just almost too much to say. He is Mr. Hendo, Dan Henderson. Welcome to the Two Man Power Trip. How you doing?
Well, thank you. I'm doing great. Great. Thanks for having me.
Man, your resume, it's almost too long, too big. It's just absolutely insane what you've done in the sport of MMA.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely done a lot, and you know, just recently had to reminisce about all that when in writing the book I just released. So it was fun to go back through and kind of, I guess, I appreciate what I've done a little bit more now that I went back and kind of remembered everything.
Yes. Hendo, the American Athlete, awesome book. I got it right here. Amazon is probably your fastest bet, like we were joking around for. But what's it like with the book and how's everything going?
It's going good. Just the book was real fun to, like I said, it was fun to write because it just made me kind of look back at what I've done, and I don't typically do that. I'm always kind of looking forward and seeing what I could do next, or next goal is, or whatever. That's always how I've been. So it was kind of something that really forced me to kind of look back and kind of acknowledge what I've done, and it was pretty fun to do that process and get it all down on paper. It's not just about MMA and not just about my wrestling, but a lot about childhood and how I grew up and what kind of built me into the person I am.
Is it fun to kind of go back and do that? Or sometimes it's like painful memories, like, oh, I got to relive this again for the book?
No, I mean it's always fun. I mean I don't regret anything I've ever done, and obviously there's goals I didn't achieve, but you know it is what it is. I can't do anything about it. So again, moving forward, looking forward. So, but yeah, it wasn't painful. It was fun to do. So I just should probably do that a little bit more. Not write a book, but just kind of think about what I've done a little bit more.
Man, I was just thinking about even your last fight against Bisbing when he, quote unquote, won, and you took the loss. Even that, I'm like, man, he could have went out as the champion, and I thought you won the fight, to be honest. But I was like, man, he could have went out as champion, would have made it even more of a legendary career if that's even somehow possible.
Yeah, no, it I think it. I felt like I did enough to win, and a couple of the rounds were. It's definitely it would have went my way the way they're judging things now.
Man, I thought I mean, once you knock the guy down a few times, I mean, you got to give him the win. I don't like the 10-point must or whatever. It just felt like Bisping had to win because you were retiring. It just didn't really feel like a legit win to me. Anyway, I was like, wow, Hendo won that, and I was just surprised to see that it went that way.
Yeah, I was pretty shocked at the decision, but
So I was asking about losses. Does it like stick with you, or you kind of get over it quick?
uh, you know, so, I mean, I, I guess I get over it fairly fast, but I'm also, you know, picking myself apart, knowing, making sure I knew what I did wrong and how to improve. But losses suck no matter what. So, you just can't dwell on them, and got to, again, set new goals and work towards them.
Would have been awesome to go out as champion, retiring as champion because you knew it was your last fight, right? You thought you knew
Yeah.
that you were done.
Win or lose, I would have been done. A lot of people think, oh, if I would have won, then I would have kept on going. No way. I was ready to go out, and that would have been a perfect way to leave.
Would have been the perfect way. Should have been if obviously the judges had something different to say. To me, definitely won. But that first fight against Bisping, UFC 100, is that the most talked about Hendo knockout of your career?
Well, probably. I mean, it's the one I hear about almost every day. If I'm out in public, I will hear somebody come up to me and say thank you for doing it. So, yeah, I hear that all the time.
It's funny, like when you watch that fight. Even I remember watching it back in what is it, 2009 when it originally happened, and Rogan saying, "Oh, don't circle to your left, don't circle to your left." And he keeps circling to his left. And he's like, "No, he's going right toward," and then boom, you knocked him out. It was like he called it almost. It was
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah, no, that's a dangerous thing to do when you're fighting a guy that hits hard, just kind of walking towards his power.
Was that your game plan? Go for the low kick, and then you'd get him with the overhand right.
No, my game plan was just obviously to just not get a little not overly aggressive to where he might take me down, but I guess that he wouldn't want to stand with me after he felt the power, and he did try to take me down once or twice, which I think the crowd laughed at him once. The first time he tried, it was not the best attempt.
When you look at it, man, like that to me, one of the most memorable KOs ever in the history of MMA. But even you have him clean knocked out, but that like Michael Jordan esque air hammer fist punch is just legendary as well.
Yeah, no, that yeah, that was it's definitely fun, and yeah, it was I wasn't doing that just because it was him. I would have done that to anybody. I, I did it almost a very similar thing to Vanderlei previous to that fight when I knocked him down and then went to finish him up. Yeah, I didn't quite get airborne for Vanderlei though, but for him I did.
That was amazing. Did you know he was out though, or was it just an instinct like I got to finish it?
It was an instant. I mean, guys look like they're out sometimes, and you stop, and the referee tells you to keep going, and they kind of recover. And had I in the second fight, I had him in the same situation and kind of missed on that follow up shot, and he recovered and made it through the fight, and then ended up getting, you know, the decision.
Yeah, quote unquote. Yeah. When you look at it though, was there bad blood there? Because people always think like, oh, he took that shot because he hated his guts. You know what I mean? That kind of thing.
No, I mean, no, not at all. I didn't have bad blood towards him. I didn't care for how he was, and kind of the arrogance that he had. I don't even know how to explain him, but yeah, I didn't really care. It wasn't somebody I'd hang out with, but it wasn't, I didn't take anything personal, and I was just out there like anything else. I just knew that what I needed to do, and kept at it. Like I said, I would have done the same thing to anybody.
He came off as like the cocky British like villain. You came off as like the all American hero. That's what it seemed like. As a fan here in the states, obviously.
Right? Yeah, yeah, and that's just who I am, and that's just who he is. Respect the fact that he was the same way on and off camera. He wasn't like had two personas.
So it seems like the Bisbane KO is something everybody talks about, but like you said with the Vonderlei, that might be one of the best because man, he was on a tear in Pride. My God, he won like 24 out of 25 fights or something insane. I mean, he was killing it in Pride, just dominating. You hit him with an awesome spinning back fist. You kind of like shake him up. I mean, it seems like you had him like disoriented most of the fight because he wasn't as aggressive with you the second time. It almost seemed like he was very cautious, and then all of a sudden you got him with the left, and then boom, did you deliver it? I mean, you just knocked his ass straight out.
Yeah, I don't know if he was kind of obviously respecting my power, but he threw some punches, but thankfully I kind of got out of the way of most of them. Uh, it does help that I knew that he throws punches kind of loopy, and you
Yep.
know I just wanted to kind of get him a little straighter and get there faster. So uh, that was what I was focusing on for that fight.
Resume wise, I mean, obviously you become double champion and everything else. I mean, that had to be, if not your biggest, one of your biggest wins ever, despite even just being a knockout. It had to be one of your biggest wins.
Yeah, no, that one I definitely feel between that one and Fedor, is like the biggest sense of accomplishment, especially with him. He hadn't he had that belt for I think 5 or 6 years, and still had it. So and I took it from him. So that was uh that was kind of special, especially being the first time double champ, and that didn't even sink in for a few years. I didn't think it was, I was just out there doing my thing, didn't think it was that big of a deal until nobody did it for a long time.
Right, and that picture is awesome when you got the 2 belts and the Grand Prix belt. That picture with you with all 3, that's just like the best picture.
Yeah, that is a good one.
Man, like what an accomplishment to be able to do that. But like you mentioned, the Fedor knockout. Obviously, you're going up in weight class. He's a heavyweight. He's probably the greatest heavyweight of all time. You know, he's arguably one of the greatest fighters of all time. And you were able to get the KO. What was it like knocking out Fedor? Oh, did you get that?
No, I didn't get it. I moved into a different location. I might be better.
Oh, okay,
So,
perfect.
I mean, we'll see.
I
We'll
was
see.
just saying, what was it like knocking out Fedor, the greatest heavyweight of all time?
That one was definitely a fun fight. I didn't expect him to. Well, he's always fairly. He goes right at, when the bell starts. He starts fighting. You know, I didn't expect him to be that aggressive from the bell. You know, I think I kind of slowed him down when I stuck out my hand to touch gloves, and then he started trying to knock my head off. So, you know, that was the funniest part to me about it. It was like, holy shit, you know, here he comes. And, you know, I think I hit him with a left hook and backed him up. And I think that's when he figured out that the little guy can hit hard too.
Big time, because you
Yeah.
see that one part of the fight, he almost falls back when he catches himself from your left.
Yeah. Yeah. That was literally right the first flurry that he came trying to knock my head off.
Man, it's 4 minute fight, but it's almost like 20 minutes of action, and with like 4 minutes, it's just bing bang. I mean, you guys don't stop. That's one of the best fights. It's just unbelievable fight.
Yeah, it was definitely a good one. He definitely hits hard though. I had some knots on the side of my head just from being in the clinch with him just barely hitting my head, you know, and had some big knots on it.
How does that finish happen? That's just crazy to think, how hard he is, obviously, but how does that finish happen? Because he's on you, he thinks he has you. You almost like hook his right leg and almost come up underneath. Like, how did that finish happen? Because it seemed like it happened out of nowhere.
You know, I do that all the time as far as getting up off the bottom, either a single leg or just tossing like an underhook, kind of throwing him over, and you know, he just didn't expect that, and his balance wasn't. He was kind of leaning forward, trying to punch me, I guess. And when I made him lean farther forward, he had to post his hands on the ground, and I popped out the side and threw a nice punch right up to his chin. So it worked out good. It's not a punch that I practice all the time, but I know that it's there. But you know, I guess the guy didn't. You know, it's hard to see coming from that angle.
Especially when he thought he had you finished. So he's like really overly aggressive, left himself open. That uppercut, I mean, that just knocks his lights out basically. Which great uppercut out of nowhere.
Yeah, no, it was, and yeah, he. I wasn't dazed, but he just was bum rushing me and got me off balance. I was backing up, bent over, and he kind of knocked me on my ass. And you know, saw him coming at me and grabbed a single leg and kind of weathered a little bit of a storm and popped out.
Pretty amazing. KO win over Wanderlei and Fedor, two of arguably the greatest of all time. I mean, right then and there. I mean, that's just a resume builder right there. Just unbelievable just to look
Yeah,
at it.
those are probably the two fights that I'm most proud of.
Then, the Babalu knockout I love just because it's almost like he gets comfortable, he's comfortable on his back, and you just I mean, boom, you just rain down on him. That's a fun one. The Fejao one is a really fun knockout because it's almost like he doesn't know where he is, and then gets spun around and just falls flat on his face.
Yeah, that was kind of a crazy one because when I hit him, it didn't feel like I hit him that hard, but I hit him right at the tip of his chin, I think, and it doesn't take much in the right spot, and yeah, and that's what kind of spun him around because I barely got the tip of his chin, from the side, and spun him around and jumped on top and finished him. He was a big, strong dude.
Yeah, he was big. It's funny. He's a light heavyweight, but he almost looks like when he's out there, he almost looks like he's a heavyweight, weight wise. He's a big, definitely a big guy for a light
Right.
heavyweight.
Yeah, he
Then
definitely was big and strong. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, then when you go to UFC and you have basically, they call it the fight of the century. It's in the UFC Hall of Fame, one of the great fights of all time. You against Shogun Hua. I feel like that's one of the greatest fights. But the only thing to me is, I don't know if it really should be one of the greatest fights of all time, because I think it should have been stopped in the third. When he turtles up, and maybe you correct me, when he turtles up like that after you nailed him, I think the ref should have stopped it then and there. No.
I don't think. Him or anyone else would have complained at a stoppage, but I think I don't know about him, but everybody was real happy that it didn't get stopped because it ended up being a pretty big battle after that.
I have a feeling that if it does get stopped, it's just one of those awesome Hendo knockouts instead of the fight of the century. So it almost is better that it did go on, because you get the win, plus it gets to be the fight of the century.
Yeah.
What is
Yeah.
it about
Yes.
Shogun and you? Because you guys seem to be, what I mean, obviously very fairly matched, but just seems like when you guys get in there together, man, it's going to be a war.
Yeah, no, he was tough, and he hurt me a couple times, knocked me down twice in the second fight. Yeah, I remember. I think I had him hurt or hit him pretty good and knocked him a little bit silly and rushed in and got caught. And I don't really remember the rest of that round. It was right at the end of the round one, and round two he dropped me again. So I had to start getting after him in round three to win the next 3 rounds.
Man, and then if you look at the KO in the second fight, it's almost like a video game. The way he popped up, popped down, and then popped back again. It was literally like Super Mario Brothers or something.
Yeah, his nose didn't look good after that one.
Oof. It is funny, like as a fan watching, obviously when you see it, like when a guy reacts like that, do you think that he's doing that so you rush in, or do you know that he's just completely out of it, where he's just like bouncing all over the place?
Yeah, no, he was definitely hurt pretty bad, and I think in both ways he was knocked silly, but I think his nose hurt, literally hurt pretty bad. It had to have. I mean, it was kind of sideways.
Yeah, he did not look good after the fight. He was probably, thanking Herb Dean, thank God this is over. I can't breathe, or, whatever's going on. I mean, you nailed him good. Where does that power come from? You know what I mean? Like, because you're a wrestler. People think of you, you're an Olympic wrestler, wrestling. Where does that power come from?
I don't know. I guess just naturally when I was a kid, I used to play baseball and throw the ball pretty hard, and pitcher, third base type of arm, and yeah, I don't know. It just, I guess, naturally I could hit hard when I first started fighting. Hitting the pads and focus mitts and the bag. Everyone said, "Oh, you hit hard, you hit hard," but it wasn't for a while until I got a little bit better technically to put it in the right place. So I didn't have any knockouts my first like 10 fights.
Yeah, they were calling you Decision Dan for a while, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, whatever it took. I was new to the sport and still learning, so it's hard to learn the finishes on guys that are pretty good.
Pretty funny though, like your Decision Dan at that point, they're kind of trying to give you. Remember, they were trying to give you Hollywood Henderson. They were trying to give you like something more of the personality, and then the H bomb comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, that's why I just started going by Hendo, just because all the dang nicknames that they had out there, and that's one of the things that I kind of named the book "The American Athlete" because when I was fighting in Pride, the media over there would sometimes refer to me as the American Athlete. So that's why I was like, that I'm going to use that for the book title.
I like that. Very good. It's
Yeah.
funny. It's funny. Like if you look at your career, like just going through it, like okay, he's a great American athlete, but you're fighting for rings, and you win over there, but you're always kind of better against bigger guys. Am I wrong on that, or do you? What do you think about it? Like where does that come from?
Well, I feel like I'm just as powerful. I never feel like I'm weaker than them. Uh, and I'm definitely they're usually the bigger they are, they're usually a little bit slower. But some of them are very good, like Big Nog and Babalu. When I fought them in the rings tournament, they had submitted everybody that they had fought before that in the tournament. So Babalu had submitted four guys before that, and I won four decisions. so
Yep.
so they were both definitely dangerous for being heavyweights. Pretty dangerous on the ground, and yeah, but yeah, like I said, I hit hard, and coming from wrestling, I was able to control fights a lot better most of the time. So the only thing that really gets me with the size is sometimes kind of pushing around a heavier guy makes you a little bit tired.
You beat Big Nog, you beat Gilbert Ivel, you beat Fedor. I mean, pretty damn good, big time heavyweights. Obviously, Big Nog and Fedor might be the two best heavyweights of all time. So it's pretty impressive that you're able to get wins over those guys.
Well, thank you.
Right? I mean, technically 185 or 205 or sometimes you go up to 207 just so you can make the heavyweight, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you're definitely a smaller guy, but it
When I
doesn't
fought
matter.
Fedor, I had to weigh in the heavyweight division to be able to fight there. So I weighed in at 206 and a half.
Wow, so just barely over the.
Yeah, no. And when I fought 205, most of the time I had to weigh in at 206, and I weighed in, probably about 202, 203 most of the time. The last time when I fought DC, I weighed in at 199.
Wow.
So I was small for light heavyweight also. So middleweight was kind of a little better for me, but especially as I got a little bit older.
Do you mind the weight cuts? I know you're used to it from wrestling, but did you mind that MMA?
No, I mean, I didn't care for them. I'd rather not, but just kind of depending on how it was. When I fought DC at light heavy, he puts his weight on you really well. He's heavy on top, and he was probably that night he was probably 30 pounds heavier than me. So I felt it a lot, and I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna go down. For the and I stayed at 185 for the rest of my career. The next, it wasn't too much longer, about 3 4 years, 3 years. I don't know how long.
More
After
comfortable at 185 versus 205?
Yeah, I mean, it's not that hard of a weight cut. And obviously the guys just aren't as big and they don't wear you out. My recovery just wasn't as good as it was when I was younger. So yeah, I think pushing around extra weight, in my opponent being heavier just kind of wore me out a little bit more.
I feel like you weren't afraid of anybody either. You know what I mean? Like you'll fight anybody, right? It just seemed like that. Like John Jones was supposed to happen. UFC 150 was like you were going to fight him too. I mean, it would have just been another guy on the resume.
Yeah, no, I was so ready to fight him. So yeah, no, I'm not. I feel like I'm capable of beating anybody in any weight class. At any given day, but obviously things in training need to be in the right way, and game plan has to be there, and you got to execute your game plan. But sometimes it doesn't happen the way you'd like, and you learn from what you did wrong in the fight. So, but uh, it doesn't matter about size to me, but it's more about styles and matchups.
Is Jones kind of the only regret that you have, like that you weren't able to fight him?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would have liked to have fought him, and I was, like I said, the most ready, probably in the best shape I'd ever been in my life for that fight, and I was in that good a shape 3 4 weeks out. I hurt my knee like 3.5 weeks before the fight, and it was a torn MCL, so it was no surgery needed, but they just said it just takes time. So I was, seeing if I could just kind of keep my cardio up and rest my knee and still be able to fight. But, I think that weekend before the fight, 1 week out, yeah, I went in and tried to kind of spar a little bit, and yeah, my whole team. So I was going to still try and do it, and my whole team said no, no, no. There's no way. So the only fight I pulled out of in 20-year career was that one.
Does it make it any difference that you did fight him in grappling, or no, like that doesn't make it make it better?
I didn't even train for that. I was so out of shape, and it wasn't a fight to me. It was more for fun.
I feel like you just wanted to get in there with him any way you could. You just had to
No,
get in there with him.
no, I'd rather. I mean, don't get me wrong. I was planning on ripping his arm off, but he just kind of, I got caught in a kind of a choke. He just had some long ass arms that I wasn't quite. I hadn't really experienced that type of thing in that move. I've never been caught in that move before because I usually get out no problem. But his arms were so long that what I normally do wasn't going to work. So
I feel like if it was MMA and you fought him, I don't know if he's ever felt the power of a guy like you. You know, like an H bomb. Like, would he be able to handle it?
yeah, no, I definitely he definitely had never fought anybody like me, and not just the power of the punch, but the control and how I could wear you out in the clinch and kind of just dirty box him and beat him up in there. It's tiring when I get in there and do that, and I was so ready to go against longer, taller guys that were a lot better strikers than him. I had at my training camp for 2 months some K1 guys that were real tall.
Oh wow! So you were bringing in the guys to mimic him, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, they were better strikers than John Jones was. John Jones does definitely some unorthodox stuff, and he's got abnormally long arms. Even for his height, he's got long arms. So the guys that I think I brought in were taller than him, but not quite as long of arms. So,
Right, right. When you look at it too, were you ever supposed to fight JDS, Junior Dos Santos, when he was champion? Because I remember that was a rumor that you kind of threw your name in the hat, but then I think Mir ended up taking the fight. Was that ever a possibility? You fighting for the heavyweight title?
you know, I think I did. I think I did say that, and I would have fought him. It would have been fun. If I think somebody got hurt, right, and I said
Yep.
I'm ready to go if you need me. So, but I mean, obviously that wasn't somebody I thought I would fight ever or wanted to fight. It just if you needed me, I would have done it. It would have been fun.
That's so like Dan Hendo, though. It's like this guy's gonna fight the champion of the UFC in the heavyweight division. Like, yeah, hell yeah, he'll fight anybody. You know what I mean?
Why not?
That would have been phenomenal. I'm pretty sure. I think it was Mir that ended up taking the fight. Obviously, a natural heavyweight former champion, but that would have been
Yes.
awesome if you stepped in with Dos Santos. Kind of would prove like this guy will fight anybody.
Well, I think I've already proven that, but yeah,
Too.
I yeah. As long as they're not like super boring. Yeah, it was real tough for me to accept a second fight with Machida. They offered me that fight, and I finally accepted it. I was saying, "Don't you have anybody else? That fight's going to be boring." And I lost the first one. Not, and it was one of those decisions where I thought was not correct, but either way, I thought it was such a boring fight, and his style was so boring that I didn't want to subject the fans to that again. And
Yeah.
even though it would be nice to get revenge on him or make sure that I beat his ass the second time, I just didn't want to subject the fans to it. I thought it was going to be boring, and but I finally accepted it, and then he tested positive the week of the fight, so fight never happened anyway.
That was one of those fights too, like the last Bisping fight. It's like, wow, Hendo definitely won. Obviously, Machida was boring. He avoided the fight rather than trying to fight, and they still gave him the decision. Like even the Rashad Evans fight, I thought you won. So I'm like, ugh. It's like, these judges can't trust them.
Yeah, I mean, I could understand why they gave Rashad the fight, but he didn't do much to me. He was trying to take me down the whole time, and I defended almost all the takedowns. I think he took me down for about 2 seconds. but I just spent with too much time with my back on the cage, even though I was beating him up from there. But I let myself stay there too long. So I can't blame the judges for that. But either way, I thought I had done enough. But but against Machida, it was just frustrating to chase him around, and then and he wouldn't really engage at all. So and then he gets a decision.
Terrible.
Yeah, I think that was pretty bad.
It was almost like the anti or the opposite of Bisping. Bisping circling, like, but he's trying to fight you. He's circling away from you, not trying to fight you. He is sometimes maddening to watch Machida. I mean, I guess you want to, he wants you to play his game where you come to him and he knocks you out, but very boring sometimes.
Yeah, no, he is, unfortunately.
Any like rematches out there that didn't happen that you want it to happen? Like Anderson Silva is one that I'm like, how did this not happen? How was there not a rematch? You know what I mean?
Oh, a rematch with him. I don't know. Nothing out there that really sticks at me at all. Just the only fight that I wish happened was the John Jones one. Yeah.
Would have been nice to see you and Rampage go at it again.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been good for him because he was probably in the best shape he's ever been in for a fight against me, which is great. I love the fact that I fought him at his best, but unfortunately, he just didn't seem to get in that great a shape for some of his other fights. I was always a fan of his. He was a buddy of mine, and but I'd be rooting for him, and then he'd come in there out of shape, and get tired and not do well, and I just think, well, shit, everybody always usually is well prepared when they go to fight me, which is great. Like I said, I love that.
They know they got to up their game. But Rampage, it is true. Sometimes, like against Rashad, it's like, come on, man, you did a big pump up for this fight. You could tell he wasn't in shape. You're like, but for you, he was ripped. He was looked awesome for you.
Yeah, and like Anderson Silva, you see him always goofing around, showboating, and not taking the fight seriously when he's out there goofing off in the middle of the cage. And I'm like, why doesn't he do that shit with me?
Yeah, fight like he fights with Damian Maia, where he's joking around the whole time. Yeah.
So, unfortunately, guys don't do that kind of shit with me. So.
It's funny, though, in that fight, though, I think the people realized how legendary your chin was because he did that kick to Belfort. He knocked him out. He did that kick to you. You almost like laugh at him. Like, what the hell was that? Like that little that chicken leg kick.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, he didn't get me square, but still, it didn't do much at all. But yeah, hard to see those sometimes.
Yes, that's another thing though. Like you're a wrestler, right? So everyone, Olympic style or Olympic level wrestler. So you think wrestling, but where does the chin come from too? Because it's almost like, okay, this guy's got an unstoppable right hand, and then he's got a chin that he's just hard to knock out.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've been knocked silly a few times. It's not that hard, but never out. I don't know. It just I guess naturally had it. Just like I said, sometimes when I've been knocked silly where my body goes on autopilot and still, is moving around and doing things that I don't remember doing when I rewatched the fight. So there's been 2 or 3 of those times that's happened.
When you look back at your career, are you like amazed that MMA kind of came along when it did? Because right as your wrestling career is over, you go right to MMA. It's almost like some wrestlers back then didn't know what to do. Like, were they going to do pro wrestling? Were they just going to retire and get a job, working 9 to 5 somewhere? You know what I mean? Some wrestlers, they just didn't know what to do. MMA came at the perfect time for you.
Well, kind of. I decided, well, I was going to go to chiropractic school, and after my second Olympic team, I applied, I got in, and then decided I was going to wrestle for another 4 years. So to try and make the 2000 team, and a year or 2 later, I decided to try fighting, and then I said, fuck chiropractic school. I don't want I like this fighting stuff. I don't want to go to school for 3.5 years. So yeah, it was I'm glad that that happened, and it did come at a pretty good time. So, and it was an awesome journey to be a part of the evolution of the sport, just to watch it and evolve with it at the same time was pretty good. I mean, I fought for just about 20 years.
Pretty amazing if you look at it. And you were in Pride and the champion of Pride when Pride was way better than UFC. I know it's hard to believe now and people don't realize that, but Pride had all the best fighters. Had Chuck goes over there and gets knocked out by Rampage. He was UFC's best guy. You know what I mean? Like Anderson Silva was over there getting beat up pretty good. So I mean, it's like Pride had all the best guys, in their prime at that time. UFC was struggling when you were dominating Pride.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that was always a debate between fans who had better fighters, and so I thought Pride had more depth because they had less weight classes too. They just had heavy and light heavy basically. At first, they had no weight classes when I first couple of years I was there, and then they kind of made the weight classes. Vanderlei became the champ, Fatal became the champ, and yeah, and then but they had a lot of depth in those two weight classes.
Looking at some of the knockouts besides the ones we named, just want to quickly mention Henzo Gracie. That's a great one. I almost feel like you felt bad for him when you knocked him out because you're like, oh shit, because you knocked him out twice. It seemed like.
Well, yeah, I mean, I knew that he was hurt bad, but and I needed to finish him because the ref wouldn't have stopped it if I would have stopped. But yeah, I hit him one more time, and I like Henzo a lot. He's a great dude, very charismatic, and a lot of positive energy, and yeah. So I mean, obviously, I didn't want to hurt him, but wanted to beat him. So yeah, it was a good one. The commentating was great on that one. Nobody knew what happened. Even Henzo didn't. Nobody knew what happened with the punch. But yeah, it was a nice right hand right to his jawbone when he shot in.
And that second one was just like, ew. You know what I mean? Then he's completely done.
Yeah, no, he was kind of on his side and just uppercut type punch right up the middle.
Yep.
And
And one of your favorites, the Hector Lombard. That one is awesome because that's like out of nowhere because you got him with the leg kick, so it's like, oh, maybe he's knocked out, and then that elbow to the temple is like, whoa,
yeah,
vicious.
he had caught my leg, and I was kind of hopping goofy, and at the same time leaning my balance back, and out of the corner of my eye, I just see his face right there. So I'm like, I'm gonna elbow him, and just knocked him silly.
Now he's a guy you didn't like because of Team Quest, or what was the issue with him?
No, I didn't have any problem with him until fight week, and he kind of brought some stuff up that, because nobody at my gym liked him when he was there. He was just kind of a bully and trying to hurt guys warming up, and going light, supposed to go light, and he's just trying to hurt him and knock him out, knock him down with body shot. Just like being an asshole. And everybody called him a bully, and so he kind of brought it up in the middle of a face-off. During fight week, we're supposed to be there for the media and taking pictures, and he's asking me about that, and I just didn't think it was the time or place, and I decided that I was gonna try to fuck him up because I didn't like him.
Man, wrong guy to rile up. Gee, what an idiot. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, oof, big mistake.
Yeah, no, yeah, I mean, he definitely hits hard. He came out and did drop me once. I think I hurt him my first punch of the fight. Then he comes back and knocks me down too. It was a good fight up till then.
Oh yeah, he definitely he's a good fighter, but it's one of the things where maybe not rile up Hendo. You're going to face an H bomb
Yeah.
in
And
two
that
minutes.
is the only head kick I've landed in a fight. I've landed some in practice. I've thrown a lot in practice, and I've threw some head kicks in fights and always fell on my ass. So that's the only one I've ever landed.
That is true, or that's interesting because you don't think of you as throwing leg kicks. You know what I mean? You don't throw many
Well, head kicks, leg kicks.
head kicks. Well, I mean head kicks. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, but he was just so short. and against opposite stance. He's a lefty, I was a righty, and
Yep.
it makes it a little easier to land that rear leg kick to the head on for me.
Perfect storm for the head kick. Like you said, he's short, he's lefty. Yeah, it's perfect.
So it worked out for sure. But yeah, no, the follow up elbow was never practiced.
Was that just instinct? Because it's almost like that was like a perfect shot to the temple.
Yeah, no, it was just instinct. So I was head there and just decided to throw a back elbow.
As we start to wind it down, head towards the finish here, to me, you got to put you on the Mount Rushmore of MMA guys. To me, one of the GOATs, probably the best resume. If you just look at it, UFC champion technically because you won that middleweight tournament, Strikeforce champion, champion in Pride 3 times over technically. So where do you rank yourself all time?
I don't know. I mean, I don't feel like it's my place to rank myself anywhere. It's up to everybody else. And honestly, I didn't fight to be in a Hall of Fame. I didn't fight to be the greatest of all time. I mean, that was the goal, was to be number one guy, the top guy in the world. But I don't think I ever set goals to be the greatest of all time. But I know that I've done a lot more than most, and I've fought, pretty much everybody that was during my era that was the top guys in 2 or 3 different weight classes. So I've definitely done a lot.
Who do you think is on the Mount Rushmore of MMA? Who's some of the greatest of all time?
I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, you mentioned Anderson Silva, John Jones, but both those guys have tested positive, and it kind of puts an asterisk by it.
Yeah.
GSP is up in there, and he's obviously never tested positive. There's a lot of guys that have been around a long time, but most those two guys kind of mostly stuck to their own weight classes.
Fedor, Wanderlei, or Wanderlei, who you beat. So there's a couple guys on there that you've beat that I would consider, or at least fought that I would consider Mount Rushmore guys.
For sure.
When you look at your legacy, what do you consider your legacy to be? I mean, even the wrestling. I know the American Athlete is a great tag name from the Japanese media, but what do you consider your legacy to be looking back? Or like, let's say somebody wants to say, what is Dan Henderson's stand?
Yeah, I don't know. Just a guy that was pretty fun to watch fight, and went and got in there and was pretty tough and scrappy. I guess I don't know. Yeah, like I said, I don't really have an answer for that one, but yeah, I just tried to be the best fighter I could be, try to be the best person I could be every day. So, that's just who I am.
To me, the greatest walkout song of all time, "Made in America" by Toby Keith. Love that walkout song.
Absolutely. He just announced he's doing a couple shows in Vegas in December, so I'm definitely going to have to make those.
To me, he's one of the greatest. I love Toby Keith, but it's awesome that it doesn't really think of it's like not an MMA walkout song, but it is. It's so good for you. It's like perfect.
Right. Yeah. Nowadays, if I fought again, I might have to use one of Toby's other songs. As good as I once was.
Yes. I ain't as good as I once was, but I'm as good once as I ever was. Yes.
Yeah, I could do one round.
Did you see he was promoting your book for you too? He gave you a little shout out.
Yeah, no, I appreciated that. No, he's a good dude. So hopefully he can beat the cancer for sure. He's definitely working hard at it, and I think he's just not going to let it define him anymore. That's why he booked those 2 shows.
Love it. Seen him in concert 4 times. He's unbelievable. I love Toby Keith. He's awesome. But give us one last push for Hendo, the American Athlete, the awesome book. Why everybody should go get it.
It just, and this is like my co-author, and he just thinks it's such a great, kind of an American dream story, but it's basically just telling people how I got to become the way I am, and what influenced me to do that, and my mindset, going through things and struggling with losses and still setting goals and moving forward. So I don't know. I think it's just an inspirational type book as well. You know, as well as just learning where I came from. I'm excited about the book, and I think it turned out great. So
I got it. I can't wait to read it. Like I was telling you before, Amazon. Boy, I ordered it yesterday. I got it today. So, man, I got it quick, but it's just an unbelievable tale to look at because it's okay. This is a great wrestler, and then all of a sudden goes in MMA, and he's got this H bomb with all this power. And not only is he great, he's beating some of the most legendary names in history of the sport. He's fighting anybody and everybody. Just one of those true, like John Wayne, old school tough guys. You know what I mean? Like that. That's what I think of when I think of Hendo.
well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Now, where can everybody get the book and find the book?
It's at barnesandnoble.com and at Barnes and Noble stores as well. And then obviously Amazon.com. It's on there. Yeah, and I think you can get signed copies out there as well. I signed a bunch of things for the signed books. If you Google that, I'm sure you can find it. Yeah, and that's pretty much it.
Where can everybody find you? Social media, website, otherwise?
Uh, I think on Facebook I'm just Dan Henderson, just my name, and then Dan Hendo on Twitter and Instagram, or X now that it's called. Yeah, and then I am doing a book signing in kind of near Portland, Oregon, November 1st at the Barnes and Noble in Bridgeport. So from at 4 p.m.
And are you doing one in New York too?
I am doing one in New York. I don't know the exact details of that one, but that is the weekend of the UFC that's out there. I think it's on that Saturday.
No John Jones, by the way.
Well, yeah, John Jones is not fighting anymore, but yeah.
Injured. I think it was his pec. Torn.
Yeah, I think it was his pec that got torn or something. So he's out for a while.
And I got to mention Hendo Fight Nights, right? You're still doing Hendo Fight Nights, right?
Yep, that is on November 18th at my gym here in Temecula. So yeah, we should have quite a few. We have, I think, 13 fights, and we're actually doing a kids MMA show earlier in the day that same day. First time I'm doing that. I usually have a couple kid fights to start out our fight night. Just the kids MMA. They have different rules, no punching to the face, but it's pretty entertaining to watch them. So we're doing a whole fight card for kids MMA with the USFL earlier in the day. I think it starts at 10 a.m.
Nice. Good stuff. Check out Hendo Fight Night. And of course, get Hendo, the American athlete, out now. Great book. You're an absolute legend. One of the greatest of all time, Dan Henderson. Dan, thank you so much for all the time. Really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you so much.